All right, we go ahead with the valedictory program. I call upon Reverend Dr. Charles and Dr. Nandini Vallath to chair this session. Please join us on the stage. Reverend Dr. Charles Davis is the organizing chairperson of the IAEE 2025 conference. He is the director-elect of CCBI Bioethics Forum of India. Apart from being a professor of bioethics in multiple universities in India and abroad, Dr. Nandini Vallath is the head of the Department of Palliative Medicines at St. John's Medical College. I now call upon Dr. Jyothi Idiculla to provide a summing up of the conference, the Rapporteur presentation. Dr. Jyothi Idiculla is Professor of Medicine and Professor at the Department of Medical Ethics at St. John's Medical College. Currently, she is a consultant of internal medicine, diabetes, and endocrinology at Manipal Hospital, Bangalore. Over to you, ma'am.
A very good day to all the dignitaries on and off stage. At the close of this exhilarating ethics festival themed ethics education and imperative for future generations, I have the impossible task of summarizing all that happened in the last 2.5 days. I'm so glad that all the sessions were recorded and all of us can watch the recordings leisurely to truly imbibe all the learnings. This melee of experienced and distinguished speakers and delegates from over 12 countries truly represented the interdisciplinary need for ethics education. Our campus was witness to eclectic talks across so many themes and disciplines, from law to bioethics, theology, philosophy, engineering, ecology, social sciences, business ethics, and the looming AI technology. I'm confident we will return with several ideas that can translate into action points in our institutions and spheres of work. Coming to the inaugural program, the conference started on a brilliant note on Thursday, the 12th of June, with a formal inauguration graced by several dignitaries, including Dr. B.C. Bhagavan, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Sciences, Dr. B.N. Gangadhar, Chairman, National Medical Commission of India, His Grace Gerald Matthias, Bishop of Lucknow, Dr. Hank Ten Have, Professor Emeritus, Center for Healthcare Ethics, Duke University, USA, and Acting President of the IAEE, Reverend Dr. Charles Davis, Organizing Chairperson and the Director-elect of Bioethics Commission of the CCBI of India, Reverend Father Jesudas Rajamanikyam, Director, St. John's National Academy of Health Sciences, and Dr. George D'Souza, Dean, St. John's Medical College. After all the dignitaries and delegates were welcomed by Father Jesudas, the traditional lighting of the lamp gave an auspicious start to the conference. Father Charles Davis stressed on the profound responsibilities of educators, thinkers, and global citizens to instill in our younger generation values of dignity and responsibility, and to focus on the health of both the human being and the planet. He stated that ethics education is a transformative force where the dignity of every person, sustainability of our planet, and moral responsibility of social justice must all be upheld together. Dr. Bhagavan in his address stated that in an era marked by rapid scientific advances, evolving healthcare systems, and complex socio-political landscapes, the place of ethics in education and research is not just important, but foundational and very relevant and timely. Going forward, the Rajiv Gandhi University will introduce mandatory modules on research ethics for PG students, and hope that the future generations will not only focus on gaining knowledge, but have compassion, wisdom, and ethics. The presidential address by Dr. Ten Have started with a brief history of IAEE, where the goals are to exchange experiences, promote knowledge, and to function as a global center of expertise for diverse topics and populations. The International Journal of Ethics Education, published by the IAEE, is the only one of its kind in the world. Ethics is imperative for human beings to exist, practice, and to flourish in society, and it implores humans to critically examine self, traditions, and to practice narrative imagination to place self in another's shoes. He quoted St. Augustine that education should be passionate and inspired, and should motivate and inspire, and not just merely transfer knowledge. Dr. Gangadhar shared his first lesson in ethics from the helper in the anatomy hall, who taught him that the cadaver belonged to a person, a human being, who commanded respect. Learning from the principle of do no harm, which pervades all religions and is a cornerstone of learning medicine, ethics education should ensure that the young in our country are being compassionate, perfectionistic, and inclusive. It's important to teach the students to see the patient holistically as one with aspirations, dreams of family and values, and not just his or her disease. In a vote of thanks, Dr. Manjulika Vas, Professor of Humanities and the Chief Organizing Secretary, also elaborated on Dr. Rakesh Ramesh's artwork, which is on the back cover of the abstract book released during the inauguration. Coming to plenary sessions, there were 4 plenary sessions spread over 3 days, cutting across various themes. The first one was on human rights, law, and ethics. Professor Laura Palazzani, Professor of Philosophy of Law and Biolaw, LIMSA University, Rome, spoke on the importance of viewing interventions such as artificial reproduction and increase in longevity with an ethical lens to identify challenges such as embryo's life, end of life, cure of diseases, and quality of life. She stressed on the importance of anticipatory ethics that was interdisciplinary in nature. She went on to state that ethics is foundational in bridging scientific and humanistic disciplines. The second talk was by Dr. Nigam Nugehalli, Registrar of the National Law School of India University. He focused on 3 points. Ethics and moral values are woven into the fabric of law. Legal education today is not equipped to teach this to students. Students must be encouraged to form moral and ethical convictions. Justice exclusively depends on maxims of interpretation on an illusion of certainty. There can be absolute certainty as well as willful ignorance. By staying comfortable while being uncomfortable. Issues of legality should be interpreted with values of ethics and morality. An interpretive attitude to certainty enforces moral principles while being sensitive to uncertainty. Controversies usually arise from missing simple solutions. He compared ethics in medicine, bearing similarity to law, where judgment calls help solve uncertainty. The second plenary session was on philosophy, ethics, and morality. Dr. Hankton started his lecture with a description of the evolution of ethics in healthcare. Bioethics stem from medical ethics, and in 2000s, global bioethics burgeoned, which connected individual, society, and the environment. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights and Bioethics 2005, adopted and adapted by the UNESCO, is the only global document on bioethics that connects the individual to the community, to the society, and to the planet. Human dignity, which is no specific definition, developed from indignity, and hence it's not a grand narrative, but 1,000 humble stories. Msgr. Renzo Pegoraro, Chancellor, Pontifical Academy for Life, Rome, took the audience to the concept of ecological cosmos to one health. He quoted Laudatum Dei 67 by Pope Francis, stressing on the interdependence of the universal family and the human capacity to act in more ecological and humane manner. He pointed out the risks of pandemics, oxidative stress, epigenetics, chronic inflammation, and endocrine imbalance, where high-energy systems and high-emission gadgets and instruments used in healthcare pose danger to health. Maintaining a sustainable system, managing resources to live together in the ecological cosmos is a global responsibility. Dr. Charles Davis explained that human dignity is of 2 broad categories: intrinsic dignity, which is natural, beyond religions, and which cannot be lost, and moral dignity that is attainable but losable too. Natural dignity exists even before morality and religion. The concept of nirvana is the expectation of human dignity irrespective of any man-made rules or boundaries. The plenary 3 was on business ethics and ethics of public life. We had Dr. T.R. Raghunandan, a retired civil servant who focused on how corruption in public office is regulated, but there are several gray areas in other settings. He used the example of how getting a cut in medical practice is not seen as corruption, but perceived by many as a smart business strategy. There's a need to go back to basic values which exist globally and see how humans can be morally and legally incentivized or disincentivized to follow ethical practices. Dr. Martha Wilcoxon, Professor, Hassan School of Business, Colorado State University of Pueblo, stressed that ethics education curriculum must train young people to discern between utilitarian ethics and virtue ethics. She also echoed all the other panelists' view when she said that any ethics education should be interdisciplinary and relevant. There's a critical need for moral decision-making processes in today's society. The last session today was on Technology Advancement and Ethics. Professor Bert Goggin, Director, Dublin City University Institute of Ethics, Dublin, spoke on the ethics of AI in education, its benefits and challenges. Ms. Pallavi Varma Patil, Lead Environment Education at Tree Academy, co-founder of Living Utopias, concentrated on technology, advancement and ethics education from a Gandhian vision of a good society. Coming to parallel sessions, there were a total of 12 parallel sessions held during the conference, as well as a digital poster session on day one. While it's impossible to pre-see each session, a few will be mentioned here. The first one, people-centric approaches in medical research, led by ICMR Bioethics Unit, explored answers to what do people want from research, what must researchers do, and how can ethics committees foster people. The second one on health professional ethics, education and bioethics. Here, discussions varied from offering a set of practical suggestions to train clinical psychologists for ethical practice, to determining the ethical handling of corpses, to suggesting that ethics education plays a significant role in healthcare training and is a fundamental element of ethics consultation. The next session on children, school, and ethics. This interactive session had many interesting points described, including promotion of adolescents' participation in sensitive but empowering research, importance of storytelling as a tool for children's value development, and the significance of listening to the voices of children with chronic conditions that alter their life experiences. From explaining the role of realistic stories that contain world values to educate children, to describing the role of a friend with children who participated in qualitative studies, several pre-primary teachers shared their experience of educating morals to young children. Technology advancement and ethics. This was a thought-provoking session with a presentation on ethics of creativity, projecting experiments with organoids and assembloids implanted to animals, which impart them with human characteristics like a mouse who obeys commands. They discussed responsible dimensions of creativity and focused on ethical imagination, the ability to perceive ethical dimensions, and quoted Indian scriptures suggesting a middle path. Other thoughts defined human enhancement as the ability to improve bodies and minds or to improve welfare. While this might be a tool for enhancing health or curing diseases, it also involves a desire for perfection. Clinical challenges in ethics education. Training healthcare professionals necessitated topics such as decision-making, communication, informed consent, quality of life, end of life, palliative care, and dealing with ethical dilemmas. There was a need for dedicated financial support for ethics consultation and post-training mentoring. An interesting scenario of using stories to help healthcare providers use empathy in their practice was presented. Finally, the 4 P's of risk management in healthcare, prudence, precaution, prevention, and protection, were discussed as important skills that need to be included in ethical training. Now, coming to the session on religion, morality, and ethics, there is a need to integrate analysis of dignity into healthcare ethics education and to have ethical reflections on complex medical decisions such as euthanasia. There's a need to study the role of AI influencing the youth today in making ethical decisions, and also in its seemingly negative influence on religious practices. New concepts of cyber thanatology and digital immortality raise ethical questions of how we remember those who have died, the AI stimulation of life after death, and the importance of striking a balance between the right to be forgotten versus how we want to be remembered. Planetary health and ethics education sustainability, the need for education to be embedded into early child education, reducing resource consumption was discussed. The youngsters should be equipped to prioritize long-term health of ecosystems over short-term satisfaction of personal desires. Ethical considerations and community engagement for health, from practice to education and translation, was facilitated by Sochara. It is important for medical ethics education to move beyond the classroom into the community, as well as to practice reflexivity as researchers. Justice must be embodied as a practice and not just a course to be covered. There is a need to move beyond labeling to achieving transparency, and a greater need for legislation to monitor healthcare. It is imperative that funding agencies and research collaborations have collective and ethical vision. The next one on research oversight from ethics committees to redefining research ethics. A human research ethics committee is vital to develop an ecosystem that ensures procedural compliance in ethical research. Ethical research must include the role of guides, have simple guidelines, and strengthen practical training to all researchers. To remain relevant, research ethics should evolve and must include participatory ethics, context-specific oversight, and data and digital ethics. The next one, embedding ethics in higher education programs led by Azim Premji University. Here the speakers describe the growing need for active integration of ethics and best practices in education and the need to have a call to action to initiate and carry out discussions within the broad research community. There was an interesting practice of incorporating interactive student-centered activities such as worksheets for critical analysis, drawings, and films, all with the objective of nurturing an education in ethics in social sector professionals to be. It is important to know how to assess students on ethics, how to prevent students from becoming jaded by barriers and issues in the field, not falling prey to adopting a moral high ground. Yenepova Center for Ethics and Cora Erip did a session on ethics education and the future of research assessment in digital age. Human existence is required to guide the direction of some scientific explorations, to interpret the outcome of research, and to be able to discuss the potential with other scientists and to validate the work done by AI. Development of a tool, a modular assessment configurator that is both adaptable and adoptable, was proposed as a research assessment aid. We have a responsibility to include principles of ethics and morality while feeding AI, thereby shaping the future of AI. The last session on interdisciplinary ethics education, discussion varied from capacity of art to shape human behavior and enhance ethical awareness, to defining the role of including humanities in medical education, to helping doctors and students to better know themselves, understand society, and develop alternate paradigms of thinking in their practice. There was merit in having an interdisciplinary approach to ethics education to address global decision-making models, transform perspectives for students by setting examples in real time. There was a poster session which projected posters from moral empowerment to tribal healers in indigenous knowledge. The first prize was backed by a paper on transgender health by Susan George et al. The second prize was shared by Dr. Jyotsna and Dr. Veena Vaswani et al., both on perspectives of tribal communities. There were 4 pre-conference workshops which saw active registration and interactive participation on the 11th of June, Wednesday. To conclude, so finally, it is time to bring the curtains down on this multifaceted, multidimensional, exciting, and enriching conference. I'm confident that we will all leave with the inspiration to practice and preach ethics through education in an interdisciplinary fashion while upholding all the key principles learned over the past 3 days. I would like to acknowledge the following kind individuals who helped me collect, collate, and construct this document, starting with Dr. Maya Mascarenhas, Dr. Manasa, Dr. Carol De Silva, Dr. Kamal Kishore, Dr. Ulas Gowda, Ms. Meghna Achar, Ms. Pranati Racha, Ms. Ria Popley, and Ms. Purvi Rao. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Jyothi. This was a very good, precise, comprehensive report which covered the essentials of the entire conference. Kindly express our thanks to each one of the Rapporteurs Committee members. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jyothi Idiculla. I now call upon the following people to accompany us on the dais. Srimati Uma Mahadevan, Madam, please. Our Reverend Father Jesudas Rajamanikyam, our beloved Director of St. John's National Academy of Health Sciences. Glad to have you here, sir. Dr. George D'Souza, who is the Dean of St. John's Medical College. Professor Hengten Have, who is the President of IAEE. Monsignor Renzo Pegoraro. Dr. Varghese, who is the Chief of Medical Science Services at St. John's Medical College Hospital. Now we have the valedictory address, preparing future generations to navigate increasingly complex moral landscapes with integrity and insight, by Srimati Uma Mahadevan. I request Dr. Nandini Vallath to introduce the speaker to us.
Thank you, Manasa. Good afternoon to all of you. It is my privilege to introduce Srimati Uma Mahadevan Dasgupta. She is the Additional Chief Secretary and Development Commissioner of the state of Karnataka and also the Additional Chief Secretary of Panchayat Raj of the Government of Karnataka. She has served several multiple capacities at the central as well as state government, departments of women and child development, planning, education, health, family welfare, atomic energy, and also in the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research. So I would say that she represents the essence of this conference because she stands by whatever is absolutely essential for the country. And the bureaucracy that we truly, actually it represents from etymology, it's the power of the writing desk. And she truly uses that power to activate and give force to policies which are going to have tremendous impact on our population's education and all of the other, healthcare and child development schemes. I was looking through many of the things, and this specifically the Palna scheme under the sub-scheme of Samarthya, which attempts to provide safe and secure environment of children through creches, where nutritional, health and cognitive development support is given to them while enabling the mothers to pursue gainful environment was great. And through my interactions with her for a very, just last few months, I have seen how the policies take shape and take action, especially in the field of access to cancer pain relief. She made sure that the implementation of the amended act at the center got implemented in our state. And also critical care related ethical and legal processes, we have come a long way since she has taken up the task. So let me not keep you away anymore from the person who's known to be an expert in the field and with, acts upon it with deep compassion and inclusive change. And she will deliver the valedictory address for today on preparing future generations to navigate increasingly complex moral landscapes with integrity and insight. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you for that very kind introduction. And may I say what a pleasure it is to be here with all of you at the valedictory session of this very, very important international conference. I've got a very large topic. It's a difficult topic. The title was given to me. It's not mine, but I can't think of anything that's more important in today's day and age. We do need to think very carefully about how we are going to prepare our young people to navigate increasingly complex moral landscapes. Even as I speak, there are conflicts going on in at least three or four parts of the world. We know which they are. And to do this with integrity and with insight. I just have a few thoughts to share with you from the sector of public service, which is the one that I know most closely. And I'll start with Gandhiji's talisman, which we were taught at the National Academy of Administration when we joined. I joined the civil service 33 years ago. And at that time, one of the heuristics that was taught to us was Gandhiji's talisman, saying that you'll be making difficult decisions every day, but here's one thumb rule that you can use. And Gandhi reminds us to recall the face of the poorest and weakest person whom we may have seen, and ask ourselves if whatever we're going to do, whatever step we contemplate, is going to be of any use to that person. Will they gain anything by it? Will it restore, this is important, will it restore them to a control over their own life and destiny? So it's not just charity that Gandhi is talking about. He's talking about agency. In other words, will it lead to Swaraj for the hungry and spiritually starving millions? And then you'll find your doubts melting away. I was thinking about the kinds of challenges that young people, as a parent, as a civil servant, as somebody who's interested in training young civil servants, I've been constantly wondering about the new complex challenges that we're facing today. Climate change, right at the very top, conflict, growing inequality. I just listed some of them. Precarity, the fact that so many of our young people today are faced with very precarious livelihoods. Child stunting, it's something that we don't think of as much as we should, but why should 1 out of every 3 children be stunted? Poor education, education not a roadway to social mobility at all. Child marriage, 1 out of every 4 or 5 girls still being married before they turn 18, thereby effectively closing their lives, and the potential to become productive and active citizens of our societies. Teenage pregnancy, gender-based violence, and oppressive social structures. Many, many more. I just listed out a few of them. And I wondered what I could say that about these. Even after several decades, multiple social inequalities persist in India. Welfare programs often fall short of their intended outcomes. Some commentators have blamed this on the presence of algorithmic thinking in the bureaucracy, in the civil service, as well as the tendency, increasingly, to turn to technology to solve social problems. Others say that there has been a moral failure of the civil service due to a flawed system of incentives and penalties. So if we start to examine the nature of such algorithmic thinking, first, it has nothing to do with STEM education. Whether it's in the engineering or the arts, any degree in the present day system is likely to be more a credential and proof of test-taking ability than a guarantee of any particular kind of learning. That's the unfortunate truth. Having said this, why do we still see the algorithmic mindset existing? And why do we see that it's found not just in pockets of any particular sector, but in all sections of society and among STEM and non-STEM graduates? It's quite different from scientific thinking, which observes empirical evidence, questions assumptions, draws inferences, and is skeptical instead of rushing to conclusions. In contrast, what I refer to as the algorithmic mindset is something that's non-reflexive, reducing complex social problems to a set of simple inputs and outputs. And this algorithmic mindset starts not in college, but in school. It's the inevitable result of our rote-based learning system that does not let students ask questions, does not let them or expect them to reflect independently, does not ask them to inquire into real-life social processes or think of consequences. Students aren't permitted to take risks, to explore nuances, or navigate through ambiguities. Instead, they are told why to read. They are told only to read, memorize, and regurgitate what's served up to them in discrete nuggets. This makes them learn to see the world in black and white. As for technology, we know that when thoughtfully designed, I'm talking to you using a public address system. I have a set of slides. I shared the slide over WhatsApp. When thoughtfully designed and used, technology can address many challenges in governance. It can limit discretion. It can limit bias, arbitrariness. It increases transparency and reduces inclusion errors. Yet, it may be of limited use in addressing the more serious moral problem of exclusion. The migrant woman worker at the brick kiln, the bedridden child with multiple disabilities, the destitute elderly person in an unnotified slum, the teenage girl married at 15 and pregnant at 16, if these people are often invisible to a welfare system, it's due to gaps in the policy design. And that's why I think one of the key challenges before us is to understand that we are not individuals, but we are part of a community. As John Donne said, way back in the 16th century, was it? No man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. If a clod be washed away by the sea, Europe is the less, as well as if a promontory were, as well as if a manor of thy friends or thine own were, any man's death diminishes me, because I'm involved in mankind, and therefore never sent to know for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee. Something to think of. In other words, this is from the social media account of Ethics in Bricks, no millionaire, whoever they may be, is actually self-made. We are all made through the efforts of others. And we saw this most recently during the COVID pandemic, when we literally lived through the pandemic because of the service of essential workers, including healthcare workers. So welfare programs often fail because we don't have sufficiently granular knowledge about people and when we fail to see every person as an individual with agency. In treating technology as a panacea, we ignore its tendency to aggregate and standardize. It prevents us from regarding the individual person and reaching them where they are. We often use a metaphor. In the civil service, we often use a metaphor called the last mile. It's a metaphor from telecommunications. Whereas it is, in fact, the first mile where citizens and the local government or the state are within arm's length of each other, and where the welfare state can actually begin to become transformed into a caring state. Finally, a civil service, any civil service, and I would possibly say any public service, including the healthcare community, reflects the values and beliefs of society. During the recent floods in a particular city, a city resident tweeted to the municipal corporation about a clogged manhole. Within hours, the social media team of the municipal corporation responded with a picture of a man unclogging it with his bare hands. So the blockage had been removed, but the inhuman practice of manual scavenging with our bare hands has not ended, not by far. As a society, we must reflect on the choices we make. It's true that there are no simple solutions to oppressive social structures, and yet we cannot just turn away, whichever sector we're in, whether it's the civil service, whether it's the medical community, whether it's the legal profession, we cannot just turn away from the difficult problems of our times and address only the superficial ones, or what we call the low-hanging fruit. I also think that we need to plan for the future. And here I was reminded of the words of Rabindranath Tagore, who says that the one who plants trees, knowing that they will never sit in their shade, has at least started to understand the meaning of life. We need to think of the future so that our future generations can face the challenges that are coming, the challenges that are inevitable, the 2-degree rise in temperatures, the extreme weather events, the problem of water stress, face these challenges with courage and with insight. If we're talking about incentives, what kind of incentive can be the primary motivation for the work that we do? Surely nothing is more meaningful than the work itself. The chief executive of Goldman Sachs, an investment bank, was once trolled for the specious remark that banks are doing God's work. Cynicism aside, some work, such as public service, has undeniable societal purpose. I'm reminded again of Gandhi's talisman. What could be the way forward? Having said all of this, what are the ways in which we can actually prepare young people? There are 4 ways of persuading someone to do the right thing. One is by threatening punishment for non-compliance. Another is by promising rewards for compliance. Another is by appealing to peer pressure. And finally, to appeal to personal integrity or the internalization of norms. I think an important answer is in training, and this is why I'm particularly interested in the training of young people, training of young civil servants. In the field, trainee civil servants are often assigned to a laundry list of attachments in different departmental offices. This tends to distance them from people rather than bring them closer to their everyday struggles. As the years pass, the distance between a young and growing older civil servant and the people that they serve actually increases. From this distance, the poor can start to look like what we call beneficiaries, quote unquote, rather than as equals, fellow citizens and partners in building our societies. As Aristotle said, educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. And therefore, when we educate, a part of teaching young people is to teach them to check the assumptions and biases on which what they believe in is actually based. I'm reminded of Margaret Mead, anthropologist Margaret Mead, who was asked by a young student what she considered to be the first sign of human civilization. I'm sure many of you have heard this story. She says that the student expected Margaret Mead to talk about fish hooks or clay pots or grinding stones, but actually she said the first sign of human civilization was a femur that had been broken and then healed. Because in the animal kingdom, if you break your leg, you die. You cannot run from danger, you cannot get to the river for a drink, you cannot hunt for food. You're meat for prowling predators. A broken femur that has healed, on the other hand, is actually evidence that someone else has taken the time to stay with the person who fell down, has bound up the wound, has carried the person to safety and has tended that person through their recovery. Helping someone else through difficulty is where civilization starts, said Mead. I would say that helping someone else through difficulty is the work of all of us to keep civilization alive. As Leo Tolstoy said, if you feel pain, you're alive, but if you feel other people's pain, you're a human being. I think thoughtful and immersive training can help young people to better understand complex social processes. They can observe what people do, hear what they say, and get a sense of their everyday lives. And this is why, whichever sector we choose to work in, it's so important for us to realize that we're not working individually, but as members of a community. Public policy calls for deep reserves of empathy. Fieldwork in real-world settings, as one person among many, can teach young civil servants valuable lessons. We need to give them the tools to act ethically, especially when pressures exist to do otherwise, as they do. In other words, there's a difference between just knowing what the right thing to do is and having the moral courage to actually do it. I'd like to say a word about the value of art and literature. I think Winston Churchill is not a favorite person of mine. He was racist and he had many problems. But there was one thing that he said about when he was asked whether they should cut art spending in order to fund the war in the Second World War. And he said, if we cut the spending on the arts, what are we even fighting for? And I think that's one part of the answer to how we should train young people for the future. The first is, of course, to teach the children. Some of the summary of the conference actually said that early childhood education is an important part of teaching. Some of the best lessons that we learn are actually before we get to school. Because school regiments us and teaches us rote learning, but before we get to school, we learn to stand in line, we learn to wait our turn, and we learn to share. We learn that sharing is caring. So teach the children. The second is that we should teach the Constitution, because these are values of equality, of freedom, of fraternity. Fraternity is a very important concept that we haven't sufficiently taught to our young people. The third, as I already said, is field immersion. The fourth is the value of art and literature, and I'll say a little bit about that. Tolstoy, whom I've quoted, believed that novels, actually, today we read very small nuggets of information on social media. We're always obsessed with ourselves and our position on social media and our public-facing picture. But what a novel does is the opposite of that. It actually, I'll just take 2 more minutes. Yeah, okay. Yeah. What a novel does is the opposite of that. It takes us into somebody else's life and takes us out of our own lives. And Tolstoy said, for example, Anna Karenina or War and Peace, Tolstoy believed that novels allowed readers to get to know characters that may seem unappealing on the outside. And that's what expanding our humanity and tolerance means. There's a Kieslowski film called A Short Film About Killing, which is actually a very short film. I think it's less than 80 minutes long. But that film is about a killing that happened and the punishment that was given. And that film actually changed the views of the public on the death penalty in Poland. Tolstoy believed that novels should increase our reserves of kindness and morality. And he believed that novels help us to understand what we call the dislikable characters as merely people who are human and on the spectrum between good and evil. The philosopher Martha Nussbaum actually writes an entire book, a thesis on how literature can contribute to making us more just as individuals and as a society. In her book, Poetic Justice, she talks about how, as readers of literature, we can glimpse the interior experiences of other people outside our lives, far removed from our experiences. In reading Banu Mushtaq's novel, Banu Mushtaq's set of stories, Heart Lamp, which just won the International Booker, I understood not only the experience of Muslim women growing up in parts of southern Karnataka, but also the universal experience of women who face discrimination and who face patriarchal pressures. Reading asks us to imagine the value of every life. And that's an important skill. It's an important muscle in our mind that we need to train. And Nussbaum shows how novels and novel reading help to develop a fully humanistic conception of public reasoning. She illustrates how literary imagination is not opposed to rational thinking, but actually is an essential ingredient of the public discourse and a democratic society. I also think the 5th, 6th, and 7th are additional points that I felt are important. As a parent, I'm always concerned, my husband and I are always concerned. We have 2 boys, very important to model ethical living, because as we see, kids don't listen to what we say. They're always watching what we do. And that's why it's important for us to model ethical living, maybe principles of frugality, maybe principles of equality. It's also important to keep in touch with volunteerism, I think, at any age, in some way, because volunteerism, again, takes us out of our own preoccupation and obsession with our own lives. And the 7th, I think, is one of the most important things that we can teach young people, which is reflective practice. We otherwise function at a very superficial level, but we don't think about what we've done, maybe that day, or that week, or whether we could have done something differently. And I think reflective practice is an important skill and an important part of the ethical imagination. Finally, the greatest danger is actually of becoming sanctimonious and holier than thou. As Nietzsche said, whoever fights monsters should see to it that in the process, they don't become a monster themselves. So being sanctimonious and feeling that we know everything that's right because we're talking about ethics is absolutely the wrong way to go. And finally, it's actually very, very fulfilling to be in any sector where one can serve and one can experience the fulfillment and the satisfaction of public service in whichever sector that we work in. Thank you.
I thank Srimati Uma Mahadevan for delivering such a powerful, optimistic talk. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for giving us examples from the real world where ethics has been sidelined and reminding us that helping others is a way to meaningful life. I request Reverend Father Jesudas Rajamanakyam to kindly felicitate Srimati Uma Mahadevan with a shawl and a plaque.
That was a very fitting and suitable valedictory address to this international conference. We have to become models for the younger generations. And you also gave a beautiful example of the Good Samaritan, you know. Thank you so much. Now we move forward to the 14th IAEE conference. We have among us Professor Heng Ten Harvey, the President of the International Association for Ethics Education, and also Msgr. Renzo Pegoraro, our new President of the Pontifical Academy of Life. May I request both of you to briefly speak about maybe your comments on the 13th International Conference here, and as well as information about the 14th International Conference that is going to be held in Amsterdam. Either of you, anyone can begin to say something. And I also, like our President has come from the Vatican City, maybe you can say about little bit about palliative medicine or something about our academy. Thank you. Maybe we begin with Professor Ten Harvey. Yeah.
Thank you very much. We started this conference with the lighting of the lamp. And at the close of this meeting, it feels like being an undertaker now that this beautiful conference is ending. But I hope that the light that we have started with in this beginning of this conference will continue to inspire us when we go home and continue with our educational activities. Because I think that when we look back at this conference, the first and most important feeling is gratitude. Gratitude, first of all, for the organizers, all the people who have been involved in making this beautiful experience possible. And we know how extremely difficult and complicated the organization of a conference will be, especially in our board. Most of the board members have organized one of our meetings in the past. We know it's a very difficult and meticulous work, and we should be gratified and again graceful for the excellent organization that is very smoothly and gives us all very much joy. So maybe I speak on behalf of all the members of our association to say thanks to the organizers. It's mostly invisible work, but we know how much work it has been invisible, and what we see now is just the reflection of all that work that has been done. The second issue is that I also would like to thank the organizers for what we have learned, because in this conference I think we have experienced the breadth of educational efforts in ethics. We have seen how many different approaches, methods have been used in different contexts, in different disciplines, in different ways. We have seen different teachers at work when they are presenting their work. We also have noticed maybe new ideas, new suggestions about how to approach a difficult issue, how to inspire students, and how to engage them in their work. And as such, I think it has been a perfect illustration of what Dr. Kochapilla has called a celebration. This conference feels like a continuous celebration of our work in education, and we feel very much motivated and inspired to continue that work and to make it even more joyful and effective. Then also, the third thing I want to point out is the focus on future generations. And it's a pleasure to see how many students have been involved in this conference. And I sincerely hope that the students have at least learned that education and ethics are very interesting areas, but also how useful they can be. It's not just theoretical motivation and theoretical work, but it is reflected in small daily practices and small gestures that show that you have an ethical conviction, that you have ethical virtues, ethical values that are reflected in your daily work. And as such, I hope that will give us a motivation also for continuing not only our work, but also maybe expanding it to make it more interesting, to bring it to more different groups of people, different disciplines, and different work environments. Now, what I like to do also is that to invite you for our next year conference, because this orientation to the future will also be reflected in next year's conference. The theme of the conference next year is shaping the future. So now we have learned a lot about how to work in ethics, and maybe we can bring these experiences in a more proactive, more future-oriented way and see how we can make some changes in settings that seem a little bit stubborn or a little bit hard to change, but we are motivated to inspire people to do that. So the conference will take place in Amsterdam at the end of June, and maybe we can show a brief video inviting you to be there. Amsterdam is a completely different place as Bangalore, but perhaps even as interesting as Bangalore because it's so different. So be welcome in Amsterdam next year, and I hope to see you there. Thank you very much.
beautiful location in Amsterdam, inviting you to join us for the 14th conference of the International Association of Ethics Education, which is taking place in 2026. This will be our venue for the conference, Basel Church. It is a lovely place with a long historic tradition. We at the Amsterdam University Medical Center and the Free University are excited to be hosting this international event next year. The conference will bring together scholars and educators from all over the world, and we hope that you will be one of them. We have a great theme for this next iteration of the IAEE conference, Shaping the Future, Educating Responsible Professionals. We welcome presentations on innovations in education, like gamification in ethics, or the impact of AI on ethics education, next to research on education and showcases of newly developed courses. If you are a teacher in professional ethics education, in medicine, in health, or tech studies, join us with your insights, research output, and educational expertise. We also hope to bring together contributions from the rapidly growing field of responsible conduct of research. As this conference is about training, we do not only welcome oral and poster presentations, we also encourage you to submit proposals for workshops or showcasing your trainings and facilitating your teaching practices. We look forward so much to welcoming you all next year here in Amsterdam.
Thank you for this video. May I request Msgr Renzo to address the gathering.
I also express my gratitude and many thanks to the organizer of this beautiful and interesting conference, particularly Father Charles and all staff of the St. John Medical College, and many thanks to the association, the International Association for Ethics Education, because it is really a good opportunity to be together and to discuss in which way to think the future through education, and to have an idea of a good society, a good world, because all people are involved to create this future. I confirm the interest of the Pontifical Academy for Life on ethics education, particularly concerning bioethics and environmental ethics, in the perspective of global bioethics, where all people are included, and we are able to appreciate the creation, the environmental aspect of our common house, common home for everybody. I think that we need a kind of urgent education for hope, peace, and responsibility that are involving all people. A responsibility for the promotion and respect of a human life at all stages, a promotion and respect of environmental issues, a responsibility to create a common home for everybody. And I know that you in India now there is a new important bridge, or big bridge. And we need not only physical bridge, but we need moral bridge, cultural bridge, a bridge among disciplines, science and society, to have an opportunity of a bridge to the future. And my wish and my hope and my blessing is for this future that can offer hope, peace, and joy to everybody. Thanks again.
Thank you. I request our director, Reverend Father Jesudas Rajamanikyam, to say a few words, please.
respected dignitaries, invited guests, and members of St. John's family. And just we are proud and we are privileged to host this important conference on ethics education. And when the keynote address, respected Dr. Uma was saying about Good Samaritan story, just referred about the Good Samaritan. I was just immediately, beautifully, I would like to say few things about the Good Samaritan, what I have learned on ethics. There are three kinds of people in the story. The first group is about the robbers. They thought, what is mine, and what is yours also mine. And the second part, the priest and Levite, the educated group, and they thought, mine is mine, yours is yours. They are not bad people. But third one, the Samaritan, witnessed the reality and entered into action because he thought, yours is yours and mine also yours. Dear friends, for the past 2.5 days, we have been and you have been reflecting how to be ethical in all realms, especially in education. The story says we have been thinking about ethics education, but that should be translated into compassionate ethics. And St. John's is really happy to part of this very important and very relevant and time-bound reflection on ethics. And we are also, from our part, would like to acknowledge and appreciate the whole committee, in the sense organizing committee headed by Father Charles Davis, and also the tireless effort, thoughtful planning, and steadfast commitment to making this event successful. I also wish to sincerely thank all the members of St. John's family, faculty, staff, and students whose generosity, dedication, and quite behind-the-scenes work made this conference possible in the spirit with which we envisioned it. We are thanking you, and also what we have taken, it is not for the mind, it is for the heart, and it's for action. We are with you, and you are also with you. Thank you, and we make a change in the world and make the world better to live without any scarcity of love, peace, and hope. Thank you, and God bless. Thank you.
Thank you, Father. I have a small announcement. All the delegates will receive e-certificates from the conference on their registered email addresses, and photographs from the conference will also be uploaded on the website. Please be on a lookout for them. I now call upon Dr. George D'Souza to deliver the vote of thanks. Dr. George is the Dean of St. John's Medical College and also the patron of the 13th International Ethics Conference.
As we come to the end of this 13th International Conference of Ethical Education, it's my pleasure to propose a vote of thanks to all those who helped make it a success. Many have told me that the conference was well organized. This would not be possible without the effort of many of our faculty, staff, and students. When Dr. Manjalika and Father Charles suggested that we host the conference, our management readily agreed and offered the unstinted support. I would particularly like to thank Father Paul, our previous director, and Father Jesudas, our current director, for the unstinted support and encouragement. I thank the International Association for Ethical Education, particularly its president, Dr. Ten Have, and its secretary, Dr. Erkan, for giving St. John's and in turn India an opportunity to host this conference and guiding us through till the end. I thank the organizing secretaries, Dr. Manjulika Vaz, Dr. Sunita Simon, Dr. Maya Maskrinis, and Dr. Nachiket Shankar, along with Dr. Tony Raj, the Dean of the Research Institute, Dr. Bindu Matthew, Principal of College of Nursing, and Father Charles, our then Associate Director of the college, for their meticulous planning and detailed execution of all aspects of the conference. I must mention Geeta from the accounts in St. John's Research Institute, Manor from Estate, and Dr. Ryan from the Research Institute for helping in the registrations, logistics, and most important, dealing with the Ministry for visas. I must thank Shekhar and his team for the catering and ensuring timely, wholesome food. To our students for providing lighter moments in the cultural program on Thursday, thank you. Last but not the least, we all owe it to our conference secretary, Sarah, for quietly working from the back, bearing with the individual idiosyncrasies and always having a smile despite being an active grad student. I thank our knowledge partners, ICMR, CCBI, Sochara, Azim Premji, Yennapoya, for their support and active participation. I also would like to thank the Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Sciences and its Vice Chancellor, Dr. Bhagwan, for endorsing this program and supporting it. I hope the conference met everyone's expectations. A word of thanks to all our donors who supported the conference generously, as conferences on ethics are not on most donors' priority lists. Software AG, Springer, JP Brothers, ATC Books, Elsevier, and Prime Mag. A big thank you to all our speakers and chairs who were instrumental in making the conference a success. It was impossible to be in all sessions, so we have recorded them and we hope to provide a link to those who want to access parts that they were not able to attend. To all our participants, a big thank you. Your active participation made this conference meaningful. When we began, we targeted 200. We were pleasantly surprised by the registrations reaching 300, with over 50 registrations from across the globe. I hope you had a fruitful conference and a pleasant stay in Bangalore. As we come to the end of the 13th International Conference, let us all commit to help make the world a more ethical and humane place till we meet again, hopefully in Amsterdam. I wish you all a safe journey back home. Thank you.
If you come across any other conference as diverse and eclectic as this, please let me know. I would be interested to attend it. Right, we now break for lunch. Lunch is served at the same place we've been eating for the last 2 days. That's the 4th floor of the Medical College building.